Today, I'm going to explore in depth 10 different pathways that you, as an accountant, could take and progress through to the ultimate CFO role. I'll cover some pros and cons of each path to see what skill sets each might give you that could make that pathway an easier or more difficult way to become a CFO. I'll also cover which series of paths I took to get to a CFO role, and if I was doing it all over again with a CFO as my sole focus, what I'll do differently, as I would definitely change some things. And especially if you're in the first 5 years of your career or considering an accounting career, you'll want to see this video to get a full overview that could help you to decide what type of role might suit you best, or whether you're on the right path on the career options you're doing right now. And the focus of this video is about the career pathways, not so much the qualifications that may or may not help get you there quicker. Some qualifications may provide somewhat of an equalizer, such that even if you are in several different career pathways, you might still have a solid shot at getting a CFO role in a different field, because they can vary dramatically and you need to know this information before you get into a specialized accounting field. Now, this list is also highly subjective, and in my experience, often a top quality candidate can successfully cross over between fields. And then remember, there's high paying roles across all of these fields. At the senior level, especially if you're a partner or a business owner. But if you're in the early part of your career and your goal is to land a CFO role, then it's highly worth understanding if you have an easier or harder path to get there. Now let's get into the top 10 list, and we're going to count down from number 10 being the least preferred route to get into a CFO role, all the way down to number 1. Now in my career, I've had roles in 4 of these 10 fields, and I certainly know those very well. So I'm definitely going to bring you some insights from those fields in particular. So let's start with number 10, forensic accounting. This is a highly specialized area. It involves investigating financial crimes, corporate or individual frauds. It can be supporting litigation cases. Now the pros here, it will definitely give you sharp analytical skills and high attention to detail. They're going to give you experience in investigations, compliance areas, and fraud prevention. It may build credibility in risk management and governance, depending on what you've done in that area. Some cons are, it's a very narrow focus field. It's going to have limited exposure to operational finance, strategy, or leadership potentially. It could be perceived as a reactive rather than a business driving type of area. In relation to the CFO role, now maybe stronger for CFOs in risk sensitive or regulatory heavy environments. Less ideal for generalist CFO roles without additional experience to back it up. Number 9, fund and investment accounting. Definitely an area that I spent some time in. This can involve financial reporting for investment funds, retirement funds, superannuation, 401ks, endowment funds, and so on. It can be a starting point to branch into related areas. I've seen people do into market research firms, product roles within finance, relationship managers, audit roles even, management accounting. I've seen people go in all sorts of directions from here. It certainly requires strong accounting knowledge and knowledge of investment vehicles and fund structures. Now the pros are, it's going to give you strong financial modeling, valuation, and investment analysis skills. It could give you very good exposure to capital markets and reporting, especially with client and government type work, and stakeholder management. It can also get you into IT projects, and you can see best practices of things because often they're done at big scale. Now the cons are, again, it can be very specialized. It may not give you much exposure to operational finance areas or company-wide budgeting. And it can be perceived as being too investment focused for traditional corporate CFOs, which need broader skills. For the CFO relevance, it can be highly relevant if aiming for CFO roles in investment heavy or fund driven businesses, and less relevant for operational corporate CFO roles though. Number 8, tax accounting. Now again, this is a compliance-based role, preparing reports and lodging tax documents with tax authorities. Can involve work for individuals, small business, all the way through to large corporates. can go in depth around planning for how to optimize tax liabilities, otherwise known as tax planning or even tax minimalization, can be quite specialized in applying tax rules either for complex industries or across different companies and different tax systems. The pros can be building deep technical expertise in tax law, compliance and planning around it, can provide insight into business structuring and the regulatory impact around different structures. The cons can be, again, a narrow focused, may not be involved in broader finance operations, may have a limited exposure to profit and loss management or decision making beyond just tax matters. Now, the CFO relevance here can be useful as a niche skill for CFOs in a highly regulated and complex tax environment, but certainly requires additional operating finance experience to be successful as a CFO. Number 7, government accounting. Now, this can be in broad accounting roles across a wide range of government service sectors, and there's certainly lots of entry-level accounting roles through government work. The pros can be you can gain specific industry sector experience. It can be quite easy to transfer around in government spaces, building out quite a depth of experience across different departments or different exposures to industries. And it could also lead to a future commercial role as a government liaison, maybe a lobbyist or a consultant. The cons can be really just a lack of commercial experience. Also, a limited exposure to competition, market competition, and also to any form of real strategic planning. Can also be exposed to maybe some poor practices, poor leadership mentors that you have, and also some of the decision making you're seeing, which is run and dictated by government policy, as opposed to really corporate and market driven analysis behind it. The CFO relevance here, it may better suit you for vertical promotions to senior roles in government rather than moving to commercial CFO roles. You may lack some of the core skills needed to succeed as a CFO here as well. Number 6, internal audit. Now, large businesses will have an internal audit or even internal audit team. And here we're talking about the internal audit function within a company, not the auditor that can be working for an accounting firm. We'll deal with that later. So the internal audit might be responsible for evaluating financial risks, overseeing governance and ensuring compliance functions. They're aiming to ensure that there's an integrity in financial results, and they provide an audit focused possibly to new products and services, maybe a high focus on some problem areas, also some major projects that are going on and need the audit oversight. So the pros here are there's a strong exposure to company controls, understanding risk management very well, and the compliance function. There's an opportunity to interact with various business units and understanding operations across the company. The role can help develop critical thinking and problem-solving skills, but on the cons, the role may be of a limited scope. It can be seen to be more of an advisory support function, also obviously more so than a revenue-driving role. It may have limited exposure to strategic decision-making or external stakeholder management. So for the CFO relevance for this role, good for a risk-aware CFO type role, but may need some lateral moves to commercial or finance leadership roles to build credibility before entering into the CFO role. Number 5, group consolidation accounting. Now this involves technical accounting roles with larger corporations, often with complex financial structures and multiple subsidiaries which require group consolidation accounting. So there's often going to be intercompany transactions and also planning strategies for methods to optimize the business structure and the tax implications for the overall group. And it may take some time to learn the complex accounting standards in depth that are behind all these strategies and the work needed to be in a group accounting space. But for the pros, it can certainly build a lot of technical expertise in complex financial reporting, IFRS, and group accounting. It also understands the intercompany transactions very well, M&A and corporate structures, because where they're all evolving over time, you're constantly having to bring in new entities in and try to work out different accounting systems or different environments that need to be then consolidated down with different accounting treatments. But for the cons, it may be highly technical and may lack some commercial and business exposure. It can be quite siloed and more of a behind the scenes type role. For the CFO relevance here, well, it's going to be strong for technical credibility, that's for sure. It may also need some commercial or strategic exposure though to round out the profile needed to build a CFO. On to number 4, business and commercial analysis field. This is going to have a focus more on financial analysis, data modeling, and supporting business decision-making processes. Certainly can be more directly involved in supporting strategic financial decisions, looking at trends, assessing profitability, and the most efficient allocation of capital and investment. Can be working across multiple business departments, that's very good, and possibly getting bigger access to or exposure to senior leaders. And the type of role really is going to be in larger organizations here. Now for some of the pros. Opportunity to develop deep business insight and strategic thinking. Often could be involved in forecasting, KPIs, and business cases for investment decisions, as well as experience in influencing leadership decisions. For some of the cons, may not gain as strong a technical finance foundation, can be seen possibly to be more advisory than operational. But for the CFO relevance, can be excellent for strategic CFO roles and best combined with some accounting or operational finance background if you've got that at some stage as well. Now, if you're agreeing or disagreeing with any of my top 10 so far, let me know in the comments below and see if you think that where your top 10 might align to the ordering that I've come up with. Let's hit number 3 though, the management consultant. This can be providing independent advice to companies to help them improve performance and efficiencies, assess new markets and services, evaluating business opportunities, or part of a project team to implement projects, and that can be big projects. The next step from there is being involved in developing strategic plans for companies. And this role may need a lot of travel, and there can be a lot of short-term assignments, which may suit some but not others when you're changing clients all the time. And it also can be a role with many long hours. But onto the pros. It can give you exposure to multiple industries, multiple companies, and strategic projects. It can help build problem-solving skills, communication skills, and excellent stakeholder management skills. Give you high visibility of business challenges and the opportunities that are out there in the market. You can often work within a client for a period of time or specialize particularly in certain industries that you're commonly working with. For the cons, it may give you limited hands-on operational finance experience, and you may be perceived as an external advisor, and you may need some internal corporate experience before building you enough credibility as a CFO. You can also be in the background doing a lot of data gathering, data analysis, or even just producing endless slide decks and presentations. But for the CFO relevance here, this can be very good for strategic or transformational CFO roles, but you may need some more operational or finance leadership experience for full credibility going into some of these big roles. Now we're in the top 2, guys. Number 2 is going to be public practice accounting. This is the dedicated accounting practices. It can cover firms from very small practices all the way through to the big 4 firms, the global accounting practices. Now there are lots of options to specialize in, from tax, audit, business services, financial reporting, advisory, and so on. It can offer career paths all the way through to partner, a move out into commerce or government or a number of other fields. Now you can get experience with some very technical accounting skills here and a very deep understanding of accounting standards depending on what areas you're working in. So for the pros, there's going to be broad exposure to multiple industries and business models. You're going to potentially develop great client management, analytical and reporting skills, and you can build credibility and a great professional network. And depending on the size of firm you've got, you may be having a very good blue chip name on your resume. For the cons, Well, depending on the work you're doing, it may be compliance heavy rather than very strategic, especially in the earlier years. It also may involve work more at the surface level of understanding what a company is and how they operate, rather than being heavily embedded in a company where you need to have a very deep understanding of a business model and how a company operates. So let's look at the CFO relevance. It can be an excellent pathway to learning great financial rigor and to building tremendous networks out in the industry, but it may require some additional operational experience to transition directly into the CFO role. And what you won't know is when you often enter into accounting practices, you might see your career really pursuing into that field. And only after a period of time, it might not hold that same level of appeal. And that was certainly the case for me, as I spent the first 3 years of my career in an accounting practice, but after that period of time, I knew it wasn't long-term where I wanted it to be. So let's move on to number 1, and it's commerce and industry fields. Now here we have perhaps the most versatile option with opportunities across every industry and with the biggest or smallest companies in that whole mix. And it can also include not-for-profit organizations as part of this. It can be finance roles within corporations. It could lead to a range of also senior corporate roles within an industry, not just based on being a CFO. And you also should be aware that the culture of the business that you are in within commerce can vary dramatically. It's enormously wide. The pros, though, you can have hands-on operational finance experience. You can get exposure to budgeting, forecasting, and every element of decision making. You can have the opportunity to see how finance drives business results through financial analysis and involvement with business strategy and many major projects within the business. But for the cons, well, it can be narrow in focus if you're staying within one core finance-related department, I guess. And it may require proactive moves to gain leadership or cross-functional exposure within that field before you've really truly got a more broader business experience. But for the CFO relevance, I believe this is one of the strongest pathways for a CFO due to having direct operational finance experience and also having a direct pathway or being involved in the core executive leadership of that business and company. And for me, this is the field I work in now, and it's also my ideal endpoint. I worked in 3 of the other fields that I mentioned before, but for me, it's the one that I want to keep and stay in because it's the most rewarding, I find. And my only career regret here is I actually took an extra couple of years to pivot into this field, as I probably stayed in the investment accounting area too long. But at the time, I hadn't identified that the CFO role was my end game. And maybe you're in the same boat. You could still be looking at multiple options for you for career advancement. We haven't all come across the CFO role as being the one that we want to keep focused on and keep moving towards with every career step along the way. So in summary, keep in mind, the skills you gain in one of these accounting pathways might either limit you to certain types of future careers, but on the flip side, they might prepare you to be more successful in some types of CFO roles more than others. And in the end, I'm an advocate of chasing the CFO role that best suits you, your skills, and your interests, not just the path that might pay the most. In practice, this means use the first phase of your career to determine where you want to create the next pathway towards. Do you want a very accounting-heavy CFO role with a limited focus? Do you want to be in a very large corporate environment with firm structures in place and clear boundaries between senior roles? Or do you want to be in a small to medium enterprise that may be far more flexible, offer continually evolving challenges across a more dynamic portfolio? But ultimately, these are the questions you must answer yourself because no one can do it for you. Let me know your thoughts on what career pathway is right for you down below. I'd love to hear it. And as I grow this channel, every little bit helps. So if you can like the video, I would appreciate it. For the business and finance professionals, I've got tons more content coming designed just for you, like this one here. And you're going to want to check it out and hit the subscribe button to join me as I share my CFO experience with you. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.